Hello, hackers! I'm Jan. Welcome to pwn.college. In this video, we will talk about text encoding. This is a series all about representing different types of data in different ways. Well, hey, text is data that we really want to represent. It's one of the oldest things that computers were designed to represent. And in fact, the first kind of popular modern text encoding was created by this gentleman here, Bob Beamer, somewhere between 1961, when Bob submitted this for standardization, and 1963, when it was approved as a standard. And it was ASCII. It is the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, and it defined 7 bits at a time for standard ASCII, and then 8 bits at a time for extended ASCII, what binary values would represent any given letter in the Latin alphabet, plus numbers, plus common special characters, basically everything you see on your keyboard, if you're got an American keyboard. And ASCII is probably definitely the oldest extant text encoding, and probably the oldest extant data encoding that we have. Right? ASCII basically says, hey, if you have basically hex 41, if you have a byte with that value, that is a capital A. Hex 69 is an I. 20 hex 2 F is a /, and so on. ASCII is a kind of a neat way of expressing text, because you can memorize the base numbers where everything starts. So A is 41, uppercase A, lowercase a is 61. This is all in hex. 0 starts at hex 30, and then you increment up. And so you can actually kind of sit down and reason out the ASCII values of a sentence you want to send in your head, and it's interesting, right? So ASCII, spoiler alert for the next video, actually is still around on the web, and it's also very much around on the terminal in your pwn.college dojo and on your own computer. Okay. The moment that ASCII was created, basically, and started being used to send text around, people started abusing ASCII to create other kind of non-text meanings with it. You've probably seen these emoticons, like smileys and frownies and so on, and people got very creative, started creating Kirby's, cats, and even complex ASCII art. So that's Abraham Lincoln rendered in text in 1-point font, because Abraham Lincoln in text is fairly large. But you can create things like Abraham Lincoln in ASCII, and people started creating complex things that you can even see in the non-Abraham Lincoln parts of this table. And so that kind of already, almost right off the bat, showed limitations in the power of ASCII to be as expressive as we need in modern society, because we tend to send a lot of smileys and frownies and so on, right? And of course, people wanted more and more expressivity in that. They also wanted languages other than English, right? So English is fine for the US and some of Western Europe, or the Latin alphabet, let's say, is fine for the US and some of Western Europe. But other countries, other languages need more. ASCII basically defines 1 byte as 1 text character, right? And this is a problem because it gives us a maximum of 256 bytes, 128 of which are kind of reserved by the standard ASCII. So A is hex 41, etc., etc. But the high bits, so starting with hex 8 and up, right, where the top bit is a 1, these were unreserved by Bob Beamer. These were left for future expansions, and this is where typically other languages, other countries that needed an text format of their own, put their characters. And you ended up with these kind of country-specific extended ASCII code pages. This is an extended ASCII code page for actually Western Europe. Let me hide my video here. So here it's standard ASCII up on the from 0 to hex 80 roughly, and then above that you can see, you know, interesting stuff, the Euro, different kind of Eurocentric ways of writing different letters, etc. Right? Other countries did their own thing. So a different encoding, a different code page for an extended ASCII was used in Cyrillic writing countries. Several different competing standards, actually. And here we see that they, of course, kept the standard ASCII because otherwise, you know, documentation that came with your computer wouldn't be readable because the computer would misinterpret all of the text characters. But the higher bits, the same ones that were used for these accented characters in the Latin 1 standard extended ASCII, were used for Cyrillic characters. And there's a version for Greek as well, right? Or, you know, these high ones were the extended range was used for Greek, and everyone had their own, right? And you can immediately start seeing problems. For example, Japan has 3 different alphabets. Did they have to, used interchangeably? Do they all fit in just these extended ASCII? Because there's only 128 potential characters here altogether. Chinese has thousands and thousands of characters, right? Obviously, they wouldn't fit here. So we have these problems right off the bat. And we're not even talking about people saying, hey, I don't want to have to send a colon, a dash, and a parenthesis to convey a smiley face. Like, what the heck? And so another encoding was made. The solution that people came up with was, hey, there are too many standards. There's all these code pages. Let's just combine them all into one. And the typical XKCD joke here on the screen is that this just causes one extra competing standard to be in existence and doesn't solve anything. But here it actually worked. So humanity came together. It was one of the greatest collaborative achievements probably in human history. I don't know, but it's impressive that it's working. Humanity came together and created Unicode. Unicode basically says, hey, let's go pick every single textual character known to humanity and assign it a number. And they did. They went and they found over 1 million, I think over maybe 1.2 million now. They take all these characters and they assign them a number known as a code point, right? Stuff like all of the emoji you're used to, every Chinese character, every Japanese character, every everything has all of these, has a Unicode character associated with it. There's a lot of complexity there, lots and lots and lots of these things. And you can see even on this table that the old ASCII, standard ASCII characters like A and / and 1 and so on, their code points, and this will become important later, are their old ASCII values. Right? Now, these are just kind of conceptual code points. They're like A, and this is written in hexadecimal here. The smirking cat emoji is code point 1F69C, right? And depending on when you grew up and what computers you used, you might have even entered these into a keyboard. You hold like, I don't know, some specific key combo and then entered 1F63C and you get the cat, right? And stuff like that. But what these are used for, these code points, is creating sequences of bytes to express these characters in binary. We don't do this with ASCII because ASCII only holds 1 byte, only 256 characters, but we do have different encodings to store Unicode in data, right? One of these is called UTF-8, and UTF-8 is awesome because it's backwards compatible with ASCII. UTF-8 says, hey, for the original standard ASCII files, just store them as 1 byte. Anything in the lower, so anything from 0 to 7F in hex, just put 1 byte and that's your character. And this is great because if you have some old documentation written in the pre-Unicode, pre-UTF-8 days, and you open it up in a text editor that expects it to be UTF-8, it works because it's just written in English. Now, for the higher bits, there's no more extended ASCII. These bits are used to start selecting different areas in the code point space of Unicode. So if your leftmost bit is a 1 or higher, so hex 80 or higher values, they start specifying, okay, you need to read more bytes, and now this 3-byte, 4-byte, 5-byte, 7-byte character, 7-byte data value gets translated into a code page. Obviously not 7-byte, but it is bigger than 2 bytes can store. That's one format. It's the format used in the vast majority of the internet for sure, and probably the vast majority of especially because it subsumes in itself standard ASCII at least. Another way of expressing Unicode, and of course this is where the XKCD standards cartoon truly comes in, is UTF-16. UTF-16 was a somewhat misguided attempt to create an encoding that went beyond ASCII, that was also not complex. UTF-8 is somewhat complicated because it's unclear how many bytes will encode an individual letter until you actually read those bytes. So if you have a bunch of data, it's hard to tell how many characters are in it. UTF-16 originally was fixed width. They said, okay, well, hey, 256 isn't enough, but what if we give you 2 bytes, 16 bits, that is 65536 potential values. 65,000 values should be enough for everybody, right? Well, they were until they weren't. Now UTF-16 is more complicated because it is 16 bits, except for if there's a specific value in somewhere, then it reads more bits, just like UTF-8. And unlike UTF-8, it's not compatible with ASCII because ASCII is 1 byte at a time, standard ASCII. UTF-16 always reads 2 bytes, and so it's no good for ASCII compatibility, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. Now, these encodings, they're are all carefully designed to specify kind of specific runs of letters near each other, etc. The reality is there are 1.2 million code points in Unicode, but they don't all follow each other because gaps are left. So you start adding Chinese character, well, maybe you missed one, right? So you leave a couple of thousand code point values unfilled and you move on and so on. So there are gaps in the numerical values that are valid Unicode. And if you just pick up a bunch of random bytes and try to decode them as UTF-8, you might not have a valid UTF-8 string, a valid UTF-8 character there, which comes into play, and we'll actually explore this later on in the lectures. Okay, some philosophy here, right? UTF-8 takes a conceptual letter, a code point, or a smiley, an emoji. All of the emoji are different UTF-8 code points, making the Unicode standard body possibly one of the most powerful groups in the world because they can just create new emoji, right? So you have like the tada emoji, and it is Unicode code point number blah 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 blah, but it's just a concept. In order to actually store that concept in a computer, transmit it over a network connection, something like that, you need to encode them as binary. And you encode them using UTF-8, UTF-16, there's also UTF-32, all these weird other archaic formats. You encode them, and though they become bytes, you send them over the wire, and the person receiving them takes those bytes and decodes them back into the abstract concept of a code point. Then coding and decoding force has to match, or weird things happen, and so on. So that's text encoding. Quick whirlwind introduction to it. It is critical, of course, because without well-designed, agreed-upon text encoding, things like Wikipedia would be a massive pain in the butt. Things that have complex characters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we'd really be stuck in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s of computing, where if you received a file from someone, you went to open it, you also needed to understand what encoding was it encoded with. Was it encoded with Greek extended ASCII, Cyrillic extended ASCII, Latin extended ASCII? Because if you got that wrong, you open the text file, it would look like garbage. Now we don't have this problem, thanks to UTF-8, which you'll explore in this module.